Her heels clicked across the kitchen floor, an unusual sound that tore me from the familiar comfort of my diving gear. When I stepped inside, Gloria stood by the mirror, adjusting a dress I'd never seen. Black, figure-hugging, utterly unlike her. "Book club?" I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. She turned and a smile, cold and sharp, cut through me. "I'm going on a date tonight," she announced as casually as discussing the weather. "Try not to be too jealous, Francis. By the way, please like and subscribe if you enjoy stories like this." The words struck me like a rogue wave. I stood, towel still in hand, watching my wife of 22 years find amusement in my stunned silence. "A date?" I managed. "You heard me." She grabbed her purse, checked her reflection one last time. "Don't wait up." I wanted to demand answers. Who, where, why, how long? Instead, a chilling certainty settled over me. "Enjoy explaining that to your sister tomorrow," I said quietly, a whisper that made her freeze mid-stride. Her confidence flickered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I replied, a lie that held the weight of a coming storm. Karen, her sister, lived 3 blocks away and had a knack for unannounced visits. More critically, Karen had been asking pointed questions about Gloria's increasingly frequent book club meetings, a group that supposedly only devoured 1 book a month. After Gloria vanished, I sank into my recliner, the silence of the house deafening. 22 years, and she had just unveiled her betrayal as if heading to the gym. The true sting wasn't the infidelity itself, but the chilling ease with which she discarded our life, how little it seemed to mean. As a dive instructor, I'd learned panic underwater was a death sentence. Calm, assess, plan. These principles now anchored me. By the time I finished my bourbon, my course was set. The next morning, Gloria floated through the house as if nothing had transpired. She hummed while making coffee, inquired about the weather, even kissed my cheek before I left for deep blue adventures. Had I not witnessed her departure in that black dress hours earlier, I might have convinced myself it was all a nightmare. But I am a methodical man, forged by 20 years in the Navy and 15 years building my business. You document everything. My first stop at Deep Blue Adventures was our joint banking account. Gloria, who always claimed superiority with numbers, proved adept at hiding them too. 3 cash withdrawals, each for $300 in the past month. Our credit card statements revealed charges at unfamiliar restaurants, a hotel in Wilmington, and an intimate apparel boutique. My dive instructor certification demanded calm under pressure, but these receipts triggered a dangerous euphoria, a nitrogen narcosis where everything became terrifyingly clear. I called the bank for 6 months of detailed statements, then drove to the Wilmington Hotel. Jennifer, the front desk clerk, recognized Gloria's photo instantly. "Oh, Mrs. Donahue," she chirped. "She's been here several times with her friend Marcus. Such a nice couple." Marcus. The name detonated inside me like a depth charge. Marcus Webb, a 40-something real estate agent and former dive student of mine, recently divorced, always preying on female customers. I'd banned him from the dive center after catching him photographing women in wetsuits. Now he was photographing my wife in hotel rooms. Back at the shop, I resurrected an old Navy contact, Tommy Rodriguez, now with a private investigation firm. We'd saved each other's lives in the Persian Gulf. He owed me. "Francis, good to hear from you, brother," Tommy said, his voice a balm. I laid out the sordid details, the dates, the hotel, Marcus Webb. Tommy listened without interruption, then delivered the advice that would change everything. "Don't confront her yet," he cautioned. "Cheaters are cornered animals. They'll destroy evidence, they'll run. You need documentation, photos, recordings, financial records. Build your case first." "This isn't a military operation, Tommy, is it?" I asked, a bitter laugh escaping me. Tommy's voice turned grave. "Your wife's waging war on your marriage, Francis. You're the only one without ammunition. Time to arm up." That evening, a small camera found its hidden perch in our living room. Not to spy, but to protect myself. If Gloria intended to demolish our marriage, she wouldn't also demolish my reputation. When she returned late again, feigning an extended book club meeting, I simply nodded and asked about the discussion. "Fascinating topic," Gloria said, avoiding my gaze. "We talked about betrayal and relationships." The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. I kissed her good night, then lay awake, meticulously mapping my next move. Tomorrow I would begin gathering the evidence that would shatter this charade once and for all. Tommy's investigation moved with brutal efficiency. By Friday, he unearthed something that made my blood run cold. Gloria wasn't just cheating, she was systematically plundering our assets. "Francis, you need to sit down for this." Tommy's voice strained, crackled over the phone. "Your wife took out a second mortgage on your dive center, 200 grand, using forged documents." The room spun. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." "She had help. Marcus Webb works for Coastal Realty. They have connections with several mortgage brokers. Someone fudged the paperwork." I gripped the phone tighter. "Where's the money gone?" "Transferred to an offshore account last month, Francis. They're planning to disappear." That evening, Gloria arrived home laden with shopping bags from exclusive boutiques. New luggage, designer clothes, jewelry I couldn't possibly afford on her legitimate income. The woman who once meticulously clipped coupons was now spending like water. "Special occasion?" I asked, observing her triumphant display. "A woman deserves nice things," Gloria purred, holding up a silk dress. "You've been so focused on your little diving business, you forgot I have needs too." My little diving business, the one she had just mortgaged without my knowledge. "Must have been expensive," I remarked, my voice unnervingly calm. She shrugged. "We can afford it. Business has been good, hasn't it?" Every fiber of my being screamed to confront her, but Tommy's directive echoed, "Build the case first." So I smiled, nodded, the picture of an oblivious husband while my world disintegrated. That night I called Robertson Chin, my attorney, a man I'd served with in the Navy before he traded his uniform for a law degree. "Francis, this is criminal fraud." Robert's response was immediate and sharp. "We need to freeze your assets and contact the authorities immediately." "What about Gloria?" "What about her?" he countered, his voice devoid of pity. "She's committed multiple felonies, forgery, fraud, theft. She's looking at serious prison time." By Sunday morning, emergency court orders had frozen all our accounts and blocked any further property transfers. I also made another crucial discovery. Gloria's mother, Elizabeth, was utterly oblivious to her daughter's machinations. Elizabeth called me that afternoon, her voice trembling. "Francis, Gloria mentioned something about moving to Florida with a new friend. She asked me to wire her $10,000 for a business opportunity." Something doesn't feel right. I laid bare the entire sordid truth. Marcus, the affair, the stolen money. By the end of our conversation, she was weeping, apologizing for her daughter's betrayal. I raised her better than this, Elizabeth sobbed. What can I do to help? In that moment, I knew I had an unlikely ally within the family, and my plan began to solidify. Monday morning brought a revelation that shifted the entire landscape. Tommy called, his news making my hand tremble. Francis, there's more. Gloria has been in contact with Detective Ray Morrison from Wilmington PD. They've been meeting privately. Morrison, the name pricked at my memory. Rumors of his involvement in questionable cases, of disappearing evidence and dropped charges for the right price. You think he's dirty? I think your wife's been paying for protection, Tommy stated. If you'd gone to the local police with this, Morrison would have made sure the case vanished. This explained Gloria's brazen confidence, her casual attitude toward the affair. She believed she was untouchable. What's our next move? I asked. We go federal. This crosses state lines when they moved money offshore. The FBI doesn't answer to local cops. That afternoon, I met FBI agent Sarah Martinez in a secluded coffee shop an hour outside town. I laid out everything: the financial fraud, the forged documents, Morrison's clear involvement. Agent Martinez listened intently, her pen scratching notes. Mr. Donahue, you've uncovered a significant operation. This isn't just about your marriage anymore. What do you mean? Agent Martinez explained that Marcus Webb and Ray Morrison had been under investigation for a vast real estate fraud scheme, a network of corrupt officials and real estate agents, specializing in property theft and money laundering. Gloria and Marcus had unknowingly provided the missing pieces of their puzzle. We need you to act normal for a few more days, Agent Martinez said. Can you do that? I nodded. What happens to Gloria? That depends on how cooperative she chooses to be. That evening, Gloria announced a spa weekend with girlfriends, leaving Thursday and returning Sunday. Sounds relaxing, I said, a chilling premonition of her true intentions, finalizing their escape with Marcus. You don't mind? Gloria seemed surprised by my casual demeanor. You deserve a break, I replied, the lie tasting like ash. Take all the time you need. I watched her pack her new luggage, the glint of documents I pretended not to notice. Bank account numbers, flight confirmations, even a fake passport bearing her photo and a different name. Thursday morning, I kissed Gloria goodbye, a kiss devoid of warmth, and watched her car disappear around the corner. She believed she was driving toward freedom. Instead, she was driving straight into a federal investigation that would obliterate everything she had built with Marcus. She's moving, I told Agent Martinez the moment Gloria's car vanished. Whatever you're planning, now's the time. Already in motion, Martinez replied. Mr. Donahue, you might want to stay close to your phone. This is going to get complicated very quickly. Friday afternoon, Agent Martinez called with the final dramatic details. Francis, we've intercepted communications between Gloria and Marcus. They're planning to meet tonight at the Ocean View restaurant on Harbor Street. They think they're celebrating their escape. That's 3 blocks from where my mother-in-law lives, I said, a grim idea forming. Perfect. We need witnesses for what comes next. I called Elizabeth and explained the plan. Her voice was steady despite the revelations about her daughter. Francis, I've been thinking about this all week. Gloria's father would be ashamed if he were alive to see what she's become. We raised her with values, but somewhere along the way she lost them. Elizabeth, I need you to call Gloria and invite her to dinner tonight. Tell her you want to discuss something important about the family. She'll suspect something. Not if you mention you've been having chest pains and want to see her before any medical tests. She'll come. That evening, I arrived at Ocean View to find Elizabeth already seated with Gloria's brother Michael and his wife Sarah. They looked nervous but resolute. Gloria had agreed to dinner, believing her mother was facing a health crisis. At 7:30, she swept in, expecting a family medical emergency. Instead, she found me sitting at the table with her relatives, a stack of manila envelopes before me. The look on her face was priceless. Her confident smile evaporated. "Francis, what are you doing here?" Her voice cracked. "Sit down," I said calmly. "We need to talk." "Mom, what's going on?" Gloria remained standing, her designer purse clutched to her chest like a shield. Elizabeth spoke first. "Gloria, Francis has shown me some very disturbing information about your recent activities." I placed the first envelope in front of each family member. "Don't open them yet. I want Gloria to explain first." "Explain what?" Gloria's voice rose, growing more defensive. "Where you've been getting money for your new lifestyle," I said quietly. "The $200,000 you stole by forging my signature on loan documents." The color drained from Gloria's face. "That's ridiculous. You're being paranoid again." Michael opened his envelope and gasped. "Gloria, these are bank records. You really did this?" "I can explain," Gloria began, but I held up my hand. "You told me not to be jealous when you went on your date," I said, my voice carrying across the restaurant. "Well, I'm not jealous anymore. I'm just disappointed that 22 years of marriage meant so little to you." That's when she froze completely, the realization that I knew everything washing over her. Agent Martinez appeared at our table, her badge visible. "Gloria Donahue, you're under arrest for bank fraud, forgery, and conspiracy." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Gloria finally looked at me with something resembling the woman I'd married. "Francis, please, we can work this out. We could have," I replied, my voice flat, "before you decided to destroy everything we built together." Saturday morning brought news of the entire operation unraveling. Agent Martinez called while I was having coffee with Elizabeth, who had insisted on staying close during the arrest's aftermath. "Francis, we've arrested 6 people in the network, including Detective Morrison. Your wife's cooperation led us to bank accounts in 3 different countries." "What did she tell you?" "Everything. Marcus Webb was running a sophisticated operation targeting small business owners across the Southeast. They've been operating for 5 years before targeting you." Elizabeth set down her coffee cup. "Agent Martinez, how many families did they destroy?" 23 that we've identified so far. Your daughter's testimony is helping us contact all the victims." I felt sick, picturing other men who had endured what I had, families torn apart by calculated deception. "There's something else," Agent Martinez continued, her voice grim. "Marcus had been planning to kill you, Francis. Make it look like a diving accident. Your wife refused to participate, which is why they accelerated the financial theft instead." The room went silent. Elizabeth gripped my hand, tears in her eyes. "He was going to murder my son-in-law." "The plan was to drain the accounts, eliminate Francis, and have Gloria inherit everything as the grieving widow. She'd have disappeared within a month with a new identity." I stared out the window at the harbor where I'd spent 15 years building my business. How close did they come? Marcus had already purchased the equipment needed to sabotage your diving gear. If you hadn't discovered the affair when you did, you'd probably be dead within the week. That afternoon, I visited Gloria in county jail. She sat across from me in an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller and older than I had ever seen her. "I never agreed to the murder plan," she said quietly. "That's why I tried to tell you about the affair. I thought if you divorced me, Marcus would leave you alone. You could have just told me the truth." "I was scared," Gloria's voice broke. "Marcus said if I betrayed him, he'd kill both of us. I know that doesn't excuse what I did, but I was trapped." I studied her face, searching for any trace of the woman I'd loved for 22 years. "The prosecutor said you might get 15 years if you cooperate fully," I told her. "I know, Francis. I'm going to testify against all of them. It won't bring back what I destroyed, but maybe it will help the other families." As I left the jail, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a kind of closure. Gloria had made terrible choices, but at least she'd drawn the line at murder. That evening, Tommy called with a final piece of the puzzle. "Francis, the FBI recovered most of your money. The offshore accounts are being frozen and the funds returned to victims. You might actually come out of this financially intact. What about Deep Blue Adventures? The business is yours. The forged mortgage is void, and the insurance company is covering the legal costs. You can rebuild." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. 3 months after Gloria's arrest, I stood on the deck of my boat, watching the sunrise paint the Atlantic in hues of gold. Deep Blue Adventures was operating again, and bookings were stronger than ever. The scandal, it turned out, had ironically drawn customers. People, it seemed, appreciated businesses run by honest men who had been tested by fire. Elizabeth had become an unexpected pillar of support, moving into Gloria's old office at the dive center, managing bookings and customer relations. Her presence helped fill the void left by 22 years of shared partnership, even if that partnership had ultimately been a lie. "Francis, you have a visitor," Elizabeth called from the office window. I looked up to see a woman in her 30s walking down the pier, dressed in professional attire, exuding confidence, yet with a familiar quality to her face. "Mr. Donahue, I'm Rebecca Martinez, Agent Sarah Martinez's sister. I run a victim advocacy group for financial fraud cases." I shook her hand, noting the family resemblance. "What can I do for you?" "We're organizing a support network for people affected by Marcus Webb's operation. 23 families lost everything to that network. They need to hear from someone who survived it intact." The idea of helping other victims resonated deeply. These men had endured the same raw betrayal, the financial devastation, the agonizing questioning of every memory. What would that involve? Speaking at support meetings, sharing your story, showing them that recovery is possible. Many of these men are contemplating suicide, Francis. They feel like failures. That afternoon, I attended my first support group meeting at a community center in Raleigh. 12 men, ranging from 35 to 60, all bore the same haunted expression I'd seen in my own mirror 3 months prior. "Gentlemen, this is Francis Donahue," Rebecca announced. His wife was part of the Webb network, but he managed to expose the operation and recover his assets. A man named David spoke first. "How did you know something was wrong?" "I lived with my wife for 8 years and never suspected anything." "I didn't know," I admitted. "I got lucky. My wife got careless and I had the right friends in the right places. But mostly I refused to let the betrayal destroy my ability to think clearly." Another man, Robert, looked up from his hands. They took my construction company, my house, my kids' college funds. Everything I built over 15 years, gone. The FBI recovered 70% of the stolen assets, I said. You'll get most of it back. But what about trust? Asked a third man. How do you ever believe in anyone again? That was the question I'd wrestled with myself. You don't start with trust, I said. You start with verification. You build trust slowly with people who earn it through consistent actions over time. After the meeting, Robert approached me privately. Francis, I heard your mother-in-law helped expose her own daughter. That must have been difficult for everyone. Elizabeth chose what was right over what was easy, I replied. That's the kind of person you can trust, someone willing to do the hard thing when it matters. That evening, I called Elizabeth to tell her about the support group. Francis, I'm proud of you for helping those men, she said. Gloria destroyed a lot of lives, but you're helping rebuild them. We're helping rebuild them, I corrected. I couldn't do this without your support. As I hung up, a profound realization settled over me. The network of lies that had surrounded my marriage was being replaced by a network of truth and mutual support. That felt like genuine progress. 6 months after the arrests, an unexpected phone call changed everything again. Francis, this is Captain Jennifer Walsh from the Coast Guard Investigative Service. We need your expertise on a case involving underwater evidence recovery. What kind of case? Marcus Webb wasn't just running financial schemes. We've discovered he was using diving operations to smuggle drugs through coastal waters. We need someone with your technical diving skills and investigative experience. The irony was perfect. The skills Marcus had tried to destroy were now being used to expose his broader criminal activities. That afternoon, I met Captain Walsh at the Coast Guard station. She showed me underwater footage of sealed containers attached to artificial reefs, the very reefs where I'd been teaching diving for 15 years. We believe Webb's network has been using recreational dive sites to transfer contraband, Walsh explained. They'd hide packages underwater during legitimate diving excursions, then retrieve them later. How can I help? We need someone who knows these waters intimately and can spot unusual underwater modifications, someone the local diving community trusts. I studied the footage, recognizing several sites where I'd taken customers. The thought that drug smugglers had been operating in my territory while I was obliviously teaching families to explore marine life made my blood boil. When do we start? The investigation took 3 weeks. Using Deep Blue Adventures as cover, I guided Coast Guard divers to suspicious sites while maintaining normal business operations. We discovered 17 hidden caches containing cocaine, heroin, and illegal weapons. The final breakthrough came when we found Marcus's personal diving logs hidden in a waterproof container. They detailed 5 years of smuggling operations, identifying corrupt harbor officials, and documenting bribes paid to local law enforcement. Francis, this evidence is going to destroy the entire coastal smuggling network, Captain Walsh said as we surfaced from the final dive. You've helped us solve crimes spanning multiple states. That evening, Elizabeth and I sat on the dive center's deck, watching the sunset paint the water golden. Your father would be proud, Elizabeth said. You turned something terrible into an opportunity to help others. Gloria's father, you mean? No, Francis, your father. He raised a man who fights for what's right, even when it's difficult. I thought about that for a long time. My own father had died when I was in the Navy before he could see me build Deep Blue Adventures or marry Gloria. Maybe he would have been proud of how I'd handled the crisis. Elizabeth, I've been thinking about expanding the business, adding a victim advocacy component, working with law enforcement on marine investigations. That sounds perfect, she said. You've found your true calling. 2 weeks later, the local newspaper ran a feature story about Deep Blue Adventure's role in exposing the smuggling network. The headline read, "Local dive instructor helps Coast Guard bust multi-state drug ring." Bookings doubled overnight. Apparently, customers wanted to learn diving from someone who'd proven his character under pressure. More importantly, I'd found a new sense of purpose. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me had actually revealed strengths I didn't know I possessed. 1 year after Gloria's arrest, I stood in a federal courthouse watching her receive her final sentence. 15 years for fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. Marcus Webb received life without parole for murder conspiracy and drug trafficking. Detective Morrison was handed 25 years for corruption and evidence tampering. Elizabeth sat beside me, her hand steady on my arm as the judge read the verdict. Her daughter's choices had destroyed their family, but Elizabeth had chosen justice over blood loyalty. The court recognizes that Mrs. Donahue's cooperation was instrumental in dismantling this criminal network, Judge Harrison said. However, the severity of these crimes demands substantial punishment. Gloria looked back at us one final time before the bailiff led her away. I saw neither the woman I'd married nor the stranger who had betrayed me, just someone who'd made choices that destroyed multiple lives, including her own. After the sentencing, Agent Martinez approached us in the courthouse hallway. "Francis, the final asset recovery is complete. Between the offshore accounts and seized properties, we've recovered 87% of the stolen funds for all victims." "What about the other 13%? "Gone. But that's still the highest recovery rate we've ever achieved in a case this complex." That afternoon, Elizabeth and I returned to Deep Blue Adventures. The business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined during my marriage. We now operated 3 boats, employed 8 dive instructors, and had contracts with both the Coast Guard and the FBI for underwater investigations. "Francis, I have something to tell you," Elizabeth said as we watched the sunset from the office deck. "I've been accepted to the Police Academy's Civilian Investigator program." I stared at her in surprise. "Elizabeth, you're 62 years old." "Exactly. I have life experience these young investigators lack. Plus, someone needs to help families navigate the aftermath of financial crimes." The idea of my former mother-in-law becoming a criminal investigator seemed surreal, but it also made perfect sense. She'd proven her integrity when it mattered most. "Does this mean you're leaving Deep Blue Adventures?" "Not leaving, expanding our services. Imagine a dive center that also provides victim advocacy and financial crime consultation." That evening, I called Rebecca Martinez to discuss integrating victim services into our business model. "Francis, you're creating something unique," Rebecca said. "A business that survived a criminal attack and transformed into a force for justice. That's powerful." As I hung up the phone, I realized that Gloria's betrayal had accidentally created something truly valuable. Deep Blue Adventures wasn't just a diving business anymore. It was proof that honest people could survive sophisticated attacks and emerge stronger. The marriage might have been fake, but what I'd built from its ashes was completely real. 2 years after Gloria's conviction, I stood on the deck of our newest boat, the Truth Seeker, watching my newest dive student practice equipment checks. She was nervous but determined, exactly the attitude needed for both diving and recovery from betrayal. Her name was Amanda Wells, a marine biologist who'd lost her research funding to a romance scammer 6 months earlier. She joined our victim support program and decided to learn diving as part of her healing process. "Mr. Donahue, I'm still afraid I'll panic underwater," Amanda said, adjusting her mask. "Fear is healthy," I replied. "It keeps you alert. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, but to function effectively despite it." Elizabeth emerged from the cabin carrying updated certification paperwork. At 63, she'd completed both police academy training and advanced diving certification. Our business now offered something unprecedented: underwater investigation services combined with victim advocacy. "Amanda, you're going to love the reef system," Elizabeth said. "Francis found 3 new artificial reefs last month during a Coast Guard investigation. Those reefs have been created using confiscated materials from Marcus Webb's smuggling operation. Turning instruments of crime into habitats for marine life felt like poetic justice." As we descended into the crystal-clear water, I watched Amanda's confidence grow with each breath. Underwater, pretense becomes impossible. You either trust your equipment and training, or you don't survive. After the dive, Amanda sat on the boat deck, tears in her eyes. "I haven't felt that peaceful in months," she said. "Down there, nothing else mattered except the present moment." "That's why I love this work," I replied. "The ocean doesn't care about your past. It only responds to who you are right now." That evening, Elizabeth and I reviewed applications for our new fellowship program, offering free diving instruction and business mentorship to financial crime victims. 43 applications this month," Elizabeth exclaimed. "Francis, we're changing lives." "They're doing the real work," I corrected. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Martinez. "Francis, the Webb Network trial in Florida resulted in 17 more convictions. Your testimony was crucial. Thank you for seeing this through." As I typed my response, I reflected on how completely my life had changed. 2 years ago, I'd been a betrayed husband discovering his wife's infidelity. Now I was running a business that helped others recover from similar betrayals while providing critical services to law enforcement. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Elizabeth answered it and returned with an envelope. "It's from the State Attorney General's office," she said. Inside was an official commendation recognizing Deep Blue Adventures for exceptional service in combating organized crime and supporting victims of financial fraud. "Look at this," Elizabeth said, pointing to the letterhead. "They're recommending us for a federal contract with the Justice Department." I studied the document, thinking about the journey that had brought us here. Gloria's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but had also revealed capabilities I never knew I possessed. "Elizabeth, do you ever regret helping me expose Gloria?" She looked at me with the same steady gaze that had sustained me through the darkest period of my life. "Francis, I regret that my daughter became someone who needed exposing, but I'll never regret choosing what was right." As we watched the last light fade over the harbor, I felt something I thought was lost forever: absolute certainty about the people in my life and the work we were doing together. The water had taught me that trust, like diving, requires both courage and careful preparation. But when you find the right people and the right purpose, the depths become a place of discovery rather than danger. Ladies and gentlemen, since you've listened to the end of this story, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which state you're watching from. Let's see what percentage of elite viewers make it to the end. And please kindly turn your attention to the screen after this message. There you'll find a full playlist of thrilling stories, a subscribe button for the channel, and our most captivating story. Click, enjoy, and thank you.